We live, Greg? You're muted.
Yeah, we are live, and I'm letting people in too at the same time. So we're live.
All right. Well, I have 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Before we get started, a couple of ground rules. I see we have a lot of people on tonight. Please silence your cell phones and try to eliminate any background noise. For people in the audience, there'll be a time for questions and comments for each project after Planning Commission members have a chance to review. Please hit the hand icon at the bottom if you want to be recognized, or email Greg. You'll have 2.5 minutes for comment time. And there'll also be a time for public comment at the end of the meeting. So that being said, let me get a roll call with Planning Commission members. Alex, you're here.
Here.
Tim.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
John.
Here.
Alternate Tony.
Here.
And I saw that we have Supervisor David Collingwood with us. Do we have is Hal on? Okay. Who do we have? Well, Steve Bell is here. Who do we have with the Wawa group?
Yes, good evening. Julie Barnes-Prevelson from the law firm of East Vernon Gray. And joining me are Joe Bada on behalf of the applicant. CJ Bach is the project civil engineer from Bowler Engineering. And Matt Hammond is the project traffic engineer from Traffic Planning and Design.
Okay, thank you. And who do we have from Easton Montgomery? Do we have anyone from Easton Montgomery? All right, well, if they show up, identify yourself. How about TripleNet?
Hi, this is Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of TripleNet with our engineering team of several different folks, depending on what time we get started. But as they arrive, I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving forward, first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 12th. Do we have any corrections or concerns? If not, can I get a motion to accept?
This is Andy. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the July 12th meeting.
This is Tim. I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so our first applicant tonight is Wawa with a sketch plan. Whoever wants to grab the reins on that, go right ahead.
Yes, I will. Good evening again, Julie Barnes-Prevelson from the law firm of East Vernon Gray. As a brief overview and introduction, applicant is the equitable owner of the property located at 3060 Old State Road, which is currently a vacant property, and is also the equitable owner of a portion of 3068 Old State Road. An applicant is proposing the consolidation of those two properties and then the re-subdivision of the properties into 2 lots. Lot 1, as you will be seeing on the sketch plan, would be located at the corner of Meeting House and State Roads, and that would presumably be developed with a Wawa convenience store with fuel facilities. And Lot 2 would retain the existing improvements, which are the multifamily residential home and the detached garage. And I believe there's a shed on the property as well. And that would be retained in ownership by the current owners of the loans. So Provco would only own the property that would be created at the corner of Meeting House and State Roads. Before I get too far into what's being proposed, I want to turn it over briefly to Joe Bada, who is here on behalf of the applicant. The applicant has not yet developed within West Rock Hill Township, so I would like him to give a brief overview of the company. Joe?
Thanks, Julie. Hey, thanks for your time tonight, Planning Commission. Appreciate it. Listening to our proposal for the Wawa convenience store with gas. Provco Pine Good Acquisitions has been doing Wawa development for the last 14 years. It's a joint venture between the Provco Group Pineville Properties and Goodman Properties that have a wealth of experience in retail development and commercial development. Our relationship with Wawa started back in 2007 with a Wawa that we underwent development with in Roxborough, and that bloomed into many other developments. And we most recently opened our 32nd and 33rd Wawa stores this year. We're very close with their Wawa's real estate group. We work jointly with them. They're very excited about an opportunity here in West Rockhill Township. They've been looking for an opportunity here for many years, and see this as a proposal that hopefully you'll look favorably upon.
Thank you, Joe. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to CJ to provide a brief overview of the existing conditions at the site and then jump right into what's being proposed. Greg, is it okay if CJ shares his screen?
Sure, I'll stop sharing it right now.
Thank you.
You have to unmute your mic in the, just right below, close to the present.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Excellent. Sorry, my apologies. I hope if you can see the screen here, I just have an aerial of where the site is, just to give it some perspective and its location relative to State Road, Lower State, the Meeting House, and just the area and the other businesses kind of in the area. These is kind of the existing conditions of the site is undeveloped, it's vacant. The other property that will be, the two properties collectively will be consolidated and then redivided to create the Wawa parcel, and the existing home on the other parcel will just remain. I don't think there's anything proposed to, any improvement proposed to that parcel. And then if I could, do you guys see this? The Wawa plan? Is that us?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So as you can see, we're proposing a Wawa's newest prototype, which is a 6,049 square foot building. So it's just slightly larger than what their traditional 5,600 square foot. So it's a several hundred square foot increase. The plan's proposing also 70 parking spaces, including 7 oversized spaces, 4 in the rear here and 3 in the front of the store. Front being facing State Road. This site proposes what we call a stacked 8 fueling canopy. This will be an A-frame canopy, and that'll be a total of 16 fueling positions, 1 on each side. Wawa typical site features include the free air spaces here in the front corner of the site, as well as their trash enclosure, which would be in the back rear of the site. A lot of landscaping opportunities. The site will ultimately provide and propose for robust landscape buffering, as well as modern lighting, LED lighting for site lighting, and as well as stormwater management controls to meet the regulations, both state and local. And that's pretty much the gist of the proposal. It's a fairly standard Wawa site. The property is a good size and seems to support it well. To be able to get the oversized spaces on this site is also a nice be able to do with have the real estate to be able to achieve that.
And CJ, you did mention that there would be seating inside. Is that correct?
I did not detail the inside. Of course, their latest prototype does have seating in it, and that's as required by the state for to support the sale of the beer. You need to have seats inside.
And the access points?
As shown on the plan, we're proposing for, as this shows here, full access on Meeting House Road and State Road. As this plan is showing. We haven't got far enough along really I don't think to get any definitives on that, though I'd defer to our traffic engineer.
And the red line, just so you can explain what the red line depicts there.
Sure. The red line is the current boundary between the two properties. So you can see how the plan contemplates, consolidating the long skinny parcel along Meeting House Road with the larger parcel to the rear, and then subdividing them and bifurcating them pretty much in the middle. Certainly would be an improvement to some of the dimensional nonconformities of the other lot as it sits today. As right now, the rear of that property is not contemplated for any development as part of this what we're doing. So as far as I'm aware, it'll just be vacant.
Okay, unless there are any questions, at this point, I would turn it over to Matt Hammond. Again, we're in the very beginning stages. This is just a sketch plan. We're still reviewing, as CJ said, access points and such. And knowing, though, that traffic is always a concern, and especially knowing that there are a number of developments proposed in the township at this time in various states of, I guess, progression, and some are located in close proximity. We have started to review traffic-related concerns and issues. So I'll turn it over to Matt just to give us insight into what he's looked at thus far.
Sure. Thanks, Joey. And good evening again, Matt Hammond with Traffic Planning and Design. As CJ was saying, to piggyback on CJ's presentation, we have located two access points, one on State Road, which is a PennDOT owned roadway, and one on Meeting House Road, it's a township owned roadway. We've located those access points as far back from the intersection, or further back from the intersection as we could. Obviously, we're taking access to a state road. We would need a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT. And as part of that process, the first step is to submit what's called a scoping application. Basically gives a preliminary outline of the development, what's being proposed, the access points, preliminary traffic information, and the like. Basically, what's going to go into a future traffic study. That scoping application was prepared and submitted in June, mid-June. The township traffic engineer did have an opportunity to review it and provide some feedback. And as Julie mentioned, one of the main components in that letter was paying special attention to the intersection of State and Meeting House Road, considering that there are 3 other proposed developments in the immediate vicinity, one being Triple Net, which I know is later on the agenda, the other one being Veris, which is on the north side or opposite side of State Road on Meeting House Road. And then I believe there's also a proposal for a cold storage building along 309 at Cat Hill Road. So all those various projects will be incorporated, but we will be looking at preparing a traffic study, determining if the proposed full access driveways will operate in a safe and efficient manner, providing various analyses and looking at the possibility of roadway improvements along State Road, and especially at Meeting House. I'm aware of the Veris project and the right turn lane that they're proposing along State Road at Meeting House Road. I also had preliminary conversations with the development team for the Triple Net warehouse. It was important for the township staff said it was important for us to coordinate with them on what they're doing a little bit further south or west on State Road. In terms of their improvements, their impact at the intersection of State and Meeting House. And we did have those conversations in late July, and we'll be trading or providing each other with information as it becomes available, whether that's traffic studies or the like. So that will be a collaborative effort in that regard. But we will get to the point where a traffic study will be prepared, as I mentioned. Still waiting on some review comments from PennDOT based on that scoping application. But we're as we move forward, we'll be supplying that various information to the township and PennDOT concurrently for review. And we will be addressing the comments that were outlined in the township traffic engineer's scoping application review, which again, a lot of that revolved around the intersection of Meeting House and State Road.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Welcome.
With that, that is a brief overview of what we're presenting. Again, we're in the very early stages. This is the first time that the township is seeing this plan, the sketch plan. We did receive a review letter from Wen Associates dated August 3rd. We are prepared to go through the comments if the Planning Commission would like us to, but I do want to note that we understand that the first few comments relate to zoning issues that we know we need to address as we move forward. And the remainder of the comments are subdivision land development ordinance comments that would be addressed, that we know we need to address, that would be addressed much further down the line as the project would progress forward. We were here tonight to provide the sketch plan and to get feedback and comments.
Right.
From
So yeah, the first two comments are, well, first with the road classification. I mean, is this going to be something that's going to require zoning relief?
Yes.
Okay. And then B, with the indoor or outdoor seating. So now the state is saying that if you sell beer in a Wawa, you have to provide seating. Is that how I understand that?
That is correct.
Okay, so do we have to, I'll ask Steve or Greg, do we have to amend our regulation to allow per state provision?
Chris, this is Steve. I don't know that I'd phrase it as we have to change our regulations. It could be considered to change our regulation. I don't think there's a lot of state regulations that we may or may not have in various ordinances.
Right. Okay. But they're not going to come down and say, yeah, you have to allow indoor seating because they want to sell beer.
The state, you mean?
Yeah, yes.
I don't think so, but that's a question for Mary Everly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those are the two big ones that jump right out at you. Steve, is there anything else in your review that you think we should touch on tonight?
Why don't we just go through it? I think it might be worthwhile just to frame some things, and even if their answer is just we'll comply or we'll address later.
All right. Are you willing to do that? I guess
That's
I'm asking Julie.
That's absolutely fine. And I'll turn it over to CJ in a second, but let me just start by saying this is a little bit different of an application because the township doesn't provide for this use particularly. So what the township has is they allow an E9 convenience store, and then as a whole separate use, an E8 motor vehicle fuel station. I will say that most municipalities have amended their ordinances to provide for convenience stores with fuel as one single use because it is one single use. That's what's evolved. And the ordinance doesn't provide for that. So now we're taking two separate uses and trying to combine them and meet all the requirements, which puts us at a disadvantage. So that's the issue we're struggling with in meeting these requirements of the ordinance.
Right. Okay.
CJ, you want to run through?
I'm happy to.
CJ, yeah, if it's a will comply, just say it's a will comply. We don't have to. read
Sure.
everything.
Yeah, and I'll do my best to try to paraphrase some of them to be more judicious here. I'm on comment C, as you guys have talked about A and B relative to the road classifications and the indoor outdoor seating. But beginning on C, 70 parking spaces are proposed. And it seems to be use E9 requires 1 space per 100 or 61 spaces. Use E8 requires 1 per employee plus 4 spaces per service bay, none proposed. minimum of 12. Applicant should clarify maximum number of employees anticipated on largest shift. We intend to clarify that and confirm with Wawa, and to the extent that, you know, we will meet what is required. You know, we think with a plan can be flexed in a way to meet whatever ends up being required per the ordinance.
It's going to be close to 70 spaces, which we provide. So if we need a couple more, we'll provide them.
Right.
Okay.
Are there any questions about that comment, or should I continue?
I have none. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Comment D, both use E8 and E9 restrict the hours of operation to 6 to 11. The applicant may submit a written request to the Board of Supervisors for review. The type of facility, amount of usage, impact on adjoining properties to be considered when reviewing a request. Applicant should advise on the anticipated hours of operation, their intent to request an extension of operating hours. Should be noted that while located in the PI zoning district, all adjoining properties except across Meeting House Road are currently in residential use. So to the extent that we would anticipate pursuing some matter of permission or relief to operate for 24 hours, that is Wawa's business model to do that. So yes, that is something we would be pursuing.
And then just to jump in here too, what we tried to show with our existing conditions plan is, you know, all the businesses that surround the property, not just across the street, but you have Bio Bombs, you have, what is it? Fresco System USA, Indian Ridge Provisions, Dave's Auto Center. There's a lot of businesses that surround this property.
Okay. Any comments on that from the planning commission members? Okay, move on.
Comment E, a type 1 buffer yard and perimeter parking perimeter buffer. Type 5 are required along adjoining residential properties. 25-foot wide side yard setback and buffer is noted along the western property boundary if lot 2 is to remain in residential use. Buffers along the southern property line is required. Incorporation of berms or raised planter beds should be considered to enhance buffering. To the extent that the property is certainly large enough, and I think the layout, you know, can be flexed. I think we do provide for adequate buffering. I just don't think we're calling it out in our plan. Right now, we're showing it as a 35-foot pump buffer, which is more conservative than what I think the 25-foot buffer is. But regardless, we do anticipate being able to achieve the required buffering.
Okay.
Any questions about buffering?
I mean, would you consider doing berms?
I mean, I don't have an opposition to berms. No, of course not. Berms with fences. You know, I like evergreen screens personally, but you know, we'd be amenable to whatever in that regard.
We're
Chris,
open for recommendations.
Yeah, Chris, I would just mention that the closest house is probably the one to the west.
Right.
And the 25-foot wide buffer yard is per the ordinance, but you know, that in itself limits how much of a berm you could put in there. But you could probably get some kind of raised landscaping berm there, at least to enhance the plantings that are proposed.
Do the berms have to follow the slope regulation?
Yes,
They do.
Presumably, yes.
unless you waive it, yes.
Right. Okay,
If I could just jump in, let me jump in on F.
go ahead.
So that's underground fuel storage tanks. And it talks about wanting more information with regard to the leak prevention and detection technology and such. I could say that Wawa's are state of the art. We're happy to provide that information, and we will.
Okay.
The next comment relates to the wells within 1,000 feet. CJ, you should probably jump in on this one.
Of course, yeah, we're continuing to do research on this. As noted in the letter, there is public water in the area, so we suspect that, you know, that we may be able to actually meet this requirement. And to the extent that we may not be able to, if a well is found, then we will, you know, we'll have to pursue relief. So we're aware of the criteria. We're investigating it. As Julie noted, it's still just very early in the planning stages. Moving forward, number 2, proposed impervious surface a lot. It's just kind of advisory here. We are below the permitted 60%. Number 3, asking, inquiring about the existing stuff on the lot to remain. And as I noted earlier, we as far as we're aware, all that stuff will remain. To the extent that it's non-conforming, I believe our layout would improve the non-conformities. So, but more, we can dig into that deeper and comply with this requirement. 4, parking areas, 7, oversized indicated, assume that these spaces are intended for truck usage. Township should determine if preferred per truck parking for customers is adequate. So at this point, I mean, without requirements, we're providing 7. We will provide all the truck movements. We'll always demonstrate that the trucks can make all the maneuvers, the fire trucks, the emergency vehicles, the trash trucks, and as well as the delivery and fuel trucks. So to the extent that that would address numbers 4 and 5 in the letter here, we certainly will comply with that. Architectural schematics and plans, we should, if we can get a positive kind of reaction here, I think we would move to one of the next steps would be to develop those types of things, architectural renderings of the building, and start to develop those types of materials. Number 7, site capacity calcs we will comply, we'll provide. Number 8, separate lot line adjustment record plan. We would conform with that and provide that as part of our land development process. 9, landscape plans would be included. We will comply. Number 10, the traffic impact study will be prepared, as Matt had elaborated on, working with the other developers in the area. Number 11, street improvements, including cartway. Proposed street improvements are not clearly, again, this is something we're just trying to work through as part of the grander kind of traffic issues out there at large with the other developments. So I don't have anything I could really say about that just yet. There's still more to be figured out, but to the extent that we would comply with the requirement or pursue relief, I just don't know at this point.
Okay.
Number 12, stormwater management will comply, as I noted earlier, would be a full, fully compliant stormwater management system. 13, site lighting, noted earlier, again, we would provide fully compliant lighting plan. 14, recreational land dedication, fee in lieu of. Certainly to the extent that we have this some vacant property, we may explore trying to do something, something with that. Maybe we would be maybe perhaps want to talk about something with that, but otherwise we would comply with it, via fee. It's 15 and 16 are about sewer. Again, just getting into this stuff, we definitely have to dig into water and sewer. We're starting to look at that stuff now, but would definitely be something we'll be getting into more pending kind of reception of this plan.
CJ, we did check into will serve, right? Letters. You guys were working on that, right?
As I said, yes, I think
Okay.
we are working on it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Narrative summary of proposed development and property owner notifications with preliminary plan will comply, and verification of the MPDS. We're going to need to get an MPS permit. We would get that. Will comply. So that's the bulk of the letter.
Steve, is there anything you think we need to touch on before we move forward?
Not specifically, as Mr. Freckleson said, this is very preliminary. We like to cover all the main items in our sketch plan letters, just to throw out there what, the township considers important items as they are proceeding with development of their plans. I'm just thinking back to the other, I don't want to say failed Wawa site, but the Wawa site that never got built. That had a lot of, concerns at the time related to traffic, related to truck parking on the site, related to the architecture of the building. That was one of the places I think we had asked for the A-frame type of fuel canopy, which they've already suggested that they were doing. So no, I don't have any specific issues. I think as indicated before, how they approach the zoning issue is, yet to be determined. I think if just any of the planning commission members have any particular feelings on the overall layout, parking or looks of the facility, this would be the time to at least express those comments.
Right. All right. So any of the planning commission members want to express any comments?
This is Alex. Steve, I'm wondering, do we know how many truck parking spots were in the other location?
I would have to look that up. I don't know.
Gotcha. Or maybe someone from Wawa can say, what do you typically provide at a facility?
So I'm going to chime in, Joe Bada, developer. Typically it's a request to the township, where they know there's going to be landscape trucks or, larger type truck vehicles that are going to be parking on the Wawa lot, and it's a request. So we try to build that into our plan. Wawa is not going to try to provide any kind of parking for any tractor trailers here or any fueling for tractor trailers. That's not, an activity that Wawa wants to get into or provide. So there's no high-end diesel type fueling facilities here. So this is strictly the oversized parking for landscape trucks and other, box type truck vehicles.
And if I could chime in this, Manham, I would say, just to echo what Joe said, it's typically, it's a function of where the site is located. If there's truck traffic, it's a function of whether or not the municipality seems to think oversized parking spaces are necessary. It's a function of whether or not we can fit them on site. And then also, I would say that when we are able to fit them on site, we typically do provide about 3 oversized parking spaces. What we would typically see at a Wawa site, if again, we're able to provide them. So by providing 7 on this site, at least in my opinion, my experience in working on a few hundred of these sites, we're probably providing about double what you would normally see.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the planning commission?
Yeah, this is John Swartuck. State Road to the north of 309 is a 4-lane highway. Given that Wawa's, your business is good, so you generate a lot of traffic. And as you noted, there are other projects already in the planning stage. I would say it's not out of the question that this section of State Road may, in some point in the future, also need to be widened to at least 4 lanes. Does your sketch plan take into consideration that possibility?
So I would say the quick answer would be yes, that there is frontage available if State Road were to ever be widened. I would think that the more likely scenario in the near term would be that you would see a 3-lane cross section on State Road, and that 3-lane cross section would be 1 lane in each direction and then turn lanes at Meeting House Road. And again, it's not ruling out the possibility of 4 lanes or 2 lanes in each direction. But I would tell you that these type of facilities for the Wawa, and I'm putting aside the other warehouse or the other proposals in the area, this type of facility relies heavily on the traffic on the roadway. So it's not that it adds a significant amount of traffic. What it does is it feeds off the traffic that's already on the road. We call that pass-by traffic. But, there'll be traffic studies done. When our traffic study is complete, we'll take into account the other users, and then we'll determine what the capacity of the road is and determine what we need to do to mitigate the impact of the development.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
This is Andy. No, I don't have any comments on the lot design or the building, just the traffic in number 10 and whether or not there's a light there at that intersection. And I know all that's forthcoming, but that's a big concern for me.
Sure. And I can tell you it's been made very clear to us in not only Steve's letter, but also the Township Traffic Engineer McMahon's letter, that's something, and I think I mentioned earlier on that we have to take special care, in looking at the intersection of State and Meeting House to determine what improvements would be necessary. And I'm quite certain that if we meet the warrants for a traffic signal at that intersection, that that will be something that we will need to look to provide. But there are all the numbers. We'll put together the numbers. The traffic signals will be reviewed. There's certain warrants that must be satisfied for signalization before the state will allow you to put a traffic signal in. But we'll go through all that. We'll include it in the study, and it will be reviewed, like I said, at least by the township and PennDOT.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is Tim. I was just gonna say, I mean, no other comments other than, traffic. That's the main one.
Yeah, and I echo all the similar concerns.
That's unusual because traffic's usually not an issue.
Yeah, everybody loves it.
We don't want one like the Tollgate Road one up in Richland Township with that entrance about 50 feet from the light there up at Tollgate. You know what I mean?
I can tell you that, as I mentioned, I've worked on a few hundred of these Wawa sites. That is one I did not work on.
Okay. Well,
Good
that's
job,
good to
man.
hear.
Good job.
That's my home store. All right, so I think we're pretty near the end of this discussion. I see that Hal Shermer has his hand up. Hal, you want to join in here? Unmute. Well, I see you, but I don't hear you. Now I don't even see you.
We lost Hal.
All right. Well, let's move on to Tony. He had his hand up. Tony, you there?
Well, yeah, I'm okay.
All right, Hal, you're out for now. You'll be back in. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
That's okay. I looked at the sketch plan and, again, as John was saying, it doesn't really show a decel lane on State Road, and that's, again, traffic is a concern to everybody. And I just wanted to know, number one, did Wawa reach out to PennDOT in regards to this project? And I know there's a lot of other projects going on in the area, but you would definitely need a decel lane going into that Wawa. That's the only thing the only point I wanted to bring out.
Sure. And Tony, I don't know if you heard me when I spoke earlier. Again, this is Matt Hammond. We have made initial contact with PennDOT. We've submitted a scoping application to PennDOT to outline the site as well as the parameters of a future traffic study. And being that we are on a state road, we will need to seek PennDOT approval in the form of a highway occupancy permit. So there'll be a very robust process that we must go through with PennDOT to obtain that permit. The township will be copied on all of the same information that's submitted. And again, similar to the traffic signal discussion, if we meet the warrants for a deceleration lane, PennDOT will require that deceleration lane to be installed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Supervisor Shermer, are you online?
Yes, I think
There
everything's
you are.
working now. Yep, I did want to say, or to follow up on what Tony had mentioned, my concern is that you are in and near an industrial district, so the guys who work at Shelley's driving the big trucks are going to stop in for the coffee and the hoagie and the pretzels with the jalapeno sauce inside. You're going to have the guys coming in from the PP&L depot, and as you guys noticed, we have proposals at least for a big deep freeze warehouse plus the other warehouse. So I do want to consider having some additional space. You also have Fresco, and all those guys drive big trucks, and all of them are going to be trying to stop in before they get on to 309 for the rest of their journey. The second question that I had is, I know that I believe this is within zone 2 of the Telford Borough Wellhead Protection Area, because portions of West Rock Hill get their water from Telford Borough. Just on the other side of the 309 bypass, you have the what used to be Farm and Home Oil. They have above ground tanks with a bunch of catchments just in case. So I was wondering if there's a possibility of considering underground tanks versus above ground tanks, which are easier to monitor. That's about it.
So again, Matt Hammond, in terms of providing for more oversized parking spaces, that's something that we can look at. And I'm not going to discount the fact that you are in an industrial area, that you would have customers who are driving larger vehicles, stop at the Wawa for gas, or I'm sorry, for coffee or for something to eat or whatnot. I would say, though, that I would temper that a little bit with respect to my experience. Has been a lot of those drivers would normally enter the facility in a car before they go pick up their truck. They really want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible and make the minimal number of stops. And the fact that the Wawa does not offer high-speed diesel precludes a lot of these truck drivers from stopping there, because when they do stop, they want to be able to fill up their truck. They want to be able to basically take care of everything in one stop. Again, not to discount the fact that there will be trucks on site, especially in the area that we're in. I just wanted to temper those expectations up front, just because, like I said, a lot of those guys try to make one stop or the minimal number of stops possible. So again, we'll look at the site, and I think 7 oversized vehicle parking spaces is pretty good for this type of use, and based on other sites. But we'll look at it, definitely.
No, well, thank you for looking at it. I just know that down the street from me, we had Helen's Deli, which got pretty much every guy who drove a tri-axle from Maysville Quarry would all pull in and get lunch over there. And unfortunately, 152 and Meeting House Road is a pretty nasty corner. We've had a bunch of accidents, some of them fatal, some of them pretty nasty. So that's the concern, is how do you mix in large vehicles pulling out slowly with people who are in a damned hurry and are doing way too much, driving way too fast. But
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, Hal. Any other comments on this project? I have nothing else. So we're just looking at a sketch plan here. We'll wait and see if you want to come back and show us some more info.
All right.
Thank you for your guys' time. Appreciate your, taking this in.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So next on the agenda is Eastern Montgomery Properties. Do we have representation?
Yes, I'm here for Eastern Montgomery Properties.
And you are Monica Sweeney?
I am.
Hi, Monica.
Hi.
Do you want to just take control here and tell us what's going on with your project?
I'm actually not on my computer because my computer won't allow me to do video. So, but I can speak about the project a little bit.
Okay. Are you the sole representative tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you just give us a quick overview and then we can look at the review.
Okay. So the site is a proposed contractor services building. We're proposing 9,000 square feet of building with 4,500 square feet of gravel storage yard. There will be a managed release concept basin underneath the parking lot. There will be a proposed water well and a sewage holding tank on site. And there are proposed street improvements as well, including curb and sidewalk.
Okay. So do you have the review letter in front of you?
I do.
All right. And I did see that you had responded to the review letter from last year. But I think the current review letter has changed a bit. So why don't we just go down through the current review letter and see what we can come up with.
Okay. All right. Number one is just the the narrative summary, which we provided.
Okay, so you've done that. That's provided.
Yep. Number two, as I mentioned, the gravel storage yard is 4,500 square feet. I think it was just a note that didn't get updated on the plan, so it still says it's 5,000 square feet, but we did actually reduce it.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah, so that you'll see that revision in the next plans that we submit.
Okay.
Number three is the ultimate right-of-way offered for dedication to the township. I guess that's up to the township to accept that.
Okay.
Four is discussing the buffer yards. I think you have to add the buffer yard along the entire Alderfer property, so we will add that. And then it's also asking for a note indicating, I guess, that if the once the clearing is done and the buffer yard is not sufficient behind the building, that we provide screening, and so we will add that note to the plan.
If I may, Chris.
Go ahead.
We had talked about the buffers, well, the last time, which I guess was a year ago or more.
Yeah.
I mean, part of this is just a line on the plan, extending the delineated buffer yard along some of the other residential properties. It's all wooded in the back of the property, so that's there's not really plantings required. And we had previously agreed that it would place a note on the plan says after clearing is done, after construction of the building is done, if the buffer yard in that building area is over cleared or cleared out to the point that it's no longer a buffer, that they'll install additional plantings in that area to fill it in.
Right.
Apologies, Mr. Chairman. Where are we?
Yes, sir.
Where I know where this is, but could we give the address and what we're doing, where we are?
The address is 531 Old Mill Road.
So it's Old Mill Road near the intersection with Forest.
On the east side, which would be,
Correct.
That's PC2 on that side.
Yep.
Or is that PC? That's PC2. All right, so you're going to make that note on the plan. That's what you're,
Yes, we will.
okay.
All right. Number five references the wetland study, and it just asks that we reference that on the plan, and we will comply with that. Number six is discussing the street improvements and the existing condition of Old Mill Road. We had provided street improvements on the plan, carway widening, curb, sidewalk, and we did not provide a street improvements for the whole length of Old Mill Road up to Forest Road. I guess what we're wondering is, would we be able to do a fee in lieu of doing those improvements up to Forest Road?
So, Chris, if you recall, this was a point of discussion in prior meetings, and
Yeah.
at the time, we had suggested, in lieu of doing the standard curb and sidewalk along the site frontage, that those funds be used to do some widening up and overlay paving from the site up to up to Forest Road, because it is a narrow road and they'll be increasing the truck traffic in and out. And at one time we were going back and forth with that concept. I think it was an engineer with your firm prior to you taking over, Monica. And now this plan has come in with not doing that work off-site, but doing curb and widening and sidewalk along the frontage, but it doesn't really address the drainage concerns or, you know, how the drainage would occur across the frontage. So, you know, by the ordinance, the straight up improvements are the full improvements along the site frontage, but to do that, they would need to do some additional widening and full width overlay paving. So I'm still throwing out the concept that by the time you would do all that, it would still serve the township better to figure out a way to do a little widening and paving up to the intersection instead of the curb and sidewalk in front of this project. I'd certainly be willing to go out and meet on site with the developer and see if we could figure out something other than curb and sidewalk along a short section of the road.
Right.
That would be fine with us if, if the township would be willing to do that.
I would support that.
And as
Yes, I would support that as well. That road is very narrow and very bad repair. So I think instead of having curbs and sidewalk out there for nobody to walk on, fixing the end of the road towards Forest Road would be a more preferable situation.
Another aspect of it is the intersection at Forest Road. I travel that quite often, and I've reported to Greg on multiple occasions when the stop sign on one side of the road or the street sign on the other side of the road have been periodically knocked over due to the existing truck traffic not being able to effectively navigate that intersection. So far more beneficial than curbs and sidewalks would at least be widening that intersection to make turning radiuses more favorable for larger vehicles.
Agreed.
And as we've done on other projects, any of that offsite work, we've always credited towards the frontage improvements that you would be waiving.
Right. All right. Well, Steve, if you can get that arranged and you can get that figured out.
Or Monica, you could call me, or if the developer wants to be involved, have them give me a call or email me, and we'll find a date to go out there.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So moving forward, number 7.
All right. So number 7 involves the parking area design. The ordinance also requires curb, raised planting beds, landscape plantings, and paving. I think that we will add this to our waiver request letter.
Yeah, I didn't have any particular concerns with the overall parking layout and size and whatnot. And I believe there's only a few employees in this building from your narrative, so there's not extensive use of the parking lot.
Yeah, we've estimated about 15 employees, and I think that's on the very high side.
What kind of construction does this outfit do?
I believe he does commercial developments. But I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember it's been so long for some of those prior meetings.
Yeah.
But I thought it was sort of your run-of-the-mill land development, whether it was housing or commercial. I don't remember.
Okay.
But he's not like a plumber or something. He was more of a land
Yeah.
development construction company.
Yeah, he's site site construction. He'll actually be developing the site himself.
Right. Okay. Thank
All right. Number 8 had to do with the parking area shading calculations. We discussed this with our landscape architect, and they felt that the existing trees along that parking area would provide that additional shading requirements to meet the 35% required.
So you think you're going to meet the requirement?
Yes.
So what? Just so everyone's clear, you're saying that the 33% is what you get from the new trees that and then there's existing trees around the parking lot, so you can't plant additional trees because there's already trees and they provide the other shading.
That is correct.
Okay, so there's no waiver needed, and I agree with their calculations.
Okay.
All right. Number 9 has to do with the proposed site lighting. It notes that we have no lighting proposed at the site entrance, and the township should determine if the proposed lighting is satisfactory.
Did we have discussion about some type of a lighted sign at the entrance?
I remember a post light or something. I don't know if it was a lighted sign.
I remember
didn't
that
have time to go
discussion,
back and
Chris.
look.
I'm not sure if it was this site or not.
Yeah, I didn't have time to go back in the minutes from a year ago.
I had a post light in my notes.
There is one pole mounted light. It's in the parking lot.
But nothing at the entrance.
No.
Yeah, I think we were looking for something at the entrance.
And would I be safe saying not necessarily a full street light, but just some, like we've done in other residential areas, some smaller post light?
Right.
Or like a little wall with a backlit sign or something like that. What are the hours of operation?
They are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Well, I'm going to make an assumption that we're all in agreement that we want some type of lighting out at the entrance. And I'm pretty sure that's the discussion we had last go around.
This is John. I would agree, especially if their hours of operation are to 6 p.m. and that's after dark in the wintertime.
Right.
If we provided one more like pole mounted light with if we have a 20-foot height on that one, would that be sufficient?
I don't know that you need to go that tall, just to delineate the driveway entrance, really.
Okay.
Give it some type of lighting. Or again, I know we had discussion about some type of a lighted sign, a business sign. Whether or not they feel they need to advertise there is up to them, I guess.
All right. Yeah, I'll discuss that with the client.
Okay.
All right. Number 10 has to do with recreation land dedication or fee in lieu of. I think it ends with the township determining if dedication of land is desired.
I would assume we would take the fee in lieu of there, unless you want to put in a pickleball court or something.
It's not part of our plan anyway.
Okay. So there would be a fee in lieu of, and that would be determined by the township.
Okay. All right. Number 11 has to do with the underground stormwater management basin. The first comment has to do with the water quality and recharge calculations, and some clarification on the stormwater volumes. I guess what would you be looking for clarification on?
Well, you've included the calculation in the report, but since you've also have a soils report that says it doesn't infiltrate, so how is the recharge volume going to be addressed? Now, that could be as easy as you're planting X amount of trees, and under the BMP requirements, you could take credit for whatever the magic number is, 10 gallons, per tree or whatnot. If you could show some other BMP that accommodates that recharge volume, then it's addressed.
Okay.
And really, that's one of the last things in stormwater. The operation maintenance agreement is standard, and you have to sign the certifications on the plan. So,
yes,
just to clarify that issue.
Okay. All right. Number 12 has to do with the water and sanitary sewer needs of the proposed use. We are just getting started on getting the permits on the permit applications for the health department and the township. And the well location should be clarified on the plan. Did it not show up on one of the plans?
I didn't see it, but I could have missed it.
Okay, it's at the back of the building,
Okay,
kind of adjacent to the stone storage yard.
that's fine. If I missed it, I apologize.
That big dashed circle is it's in the center of that.
Yes, that's our our buffer line from the well.
Yeah, so I shouldn't have missed it, but I did. Sorry. I thought that's pretty obvious.
No problem.
Hey, going back to 11, we didn't address B and C. I don't think. I'm assuming they're going to be well complied.
Oh yes. I think Steve talked about those very briefly, but yes, they are well complied.
Thank you.
And Steve, we have an ordinance permitting the use of holding tanks.
Yes, they have to do a maintenance agreement with the township in addition to whatever agreement that the health department requires them to sign. I'm assuming with the 15 employees, it'll be roughly 150 gallons per day is what the health department will ask for. So that's within that 800 gallon per day allowance for the non-residential holding tank.
How big is the holding tank?
I do not have the answer to that. I apologize.
What are they typically in size?
If somebody else knows, they can chime in. This is the first project I've had with a sewage holding tank. I'm used to the public sewer connection projects. So.
Yeah, it'll probably end up being a 1,500 to 2,500 gallon tank. And they only need 3 days storage at 150 gallons. So they don't need a lot of storage technically. But usually I don't end up with anything less than a 1,500 gallon tank.
The plan says a 10 by 5 tank, but I have no idea how deep that tank is.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. But the health department will tell them what their minimum size has to be.
Right. All right, so where are we?
I think we're on number 13. Well, that goes into the holding tank. There's also a note about connecting to the public facilities if they are extended near the property, and we will comply with that.
One other item on number 13 to not be forgotten about is the sewage planning module exemption request.
Yes.
Make sure you do that paperwork so we have that.
Yes,
in our file for the project.
Yes, we're just getting started on that.
Okay.
All right, number 14 is the traffic impact study. We requested a waiver for that.
I think that's something we talked about in prior plans too. That was sort of part and parcel of doing the other offsite improvements to Mill Road.
Okay. Number 15 is just about the MPDS permit. We've got our first submission into the Bucks County Conservation District now. We're just waiting to hear back from them. And as soon as we get that permit, we'll obviously forward a copy to the township. Number 16 is about consolidating the two tax parcels in a deed in manner satisfactory to the township solicitor. That will comply. Number 17 is about an opinion of cost. Once all the plan revisions are completed, we will comply with that. And number 18 is about the drafting details review, and we will comply with those as well.
Okay. So, any discussion from planning commission members? Okay. I really have no further discussion. What are you looking for tonight, Monica?
I was just looking for some input on, some of the comments, specifically the street improvements and possible fee in lieu of. That was my main concern for this project right now.
Right.
Chris, I might suggest it's not a large project. It's pretty straightforward. And I think the only big question is those street improvements. And I think maybe if we got that resolved, then they might be in line for a conditional preliminary final approval to move it on.
Right.
Well, I guess the waiver request first, right?
Yeah, we do have waiver requests.
So I have a question with regard to the waiver request. So the ones about the request a waiver from requirement that parking areas not be permitted along driveways, which serve as the main entrance or exit. Where it's tough to see on this plan because it's so small we have here, and I can't really see one on the screen either. Where exactly is this proposed parking along the entrance?
So when you first come in off the street, it'll be on the right, just before the building. So you would basically make a right turn into the parking and the parking is.
Okay, so the one's right in front of the building there?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily, by default, it's in the entrance, but it's not right in the beginning part of the entrance drive. Theoretically, it's in the entrance because you keep driving straight into the development.
Gotcha.
More of a technical requirement than.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't see anywhere where there's like parking spaces along the, coming in off the street there. So I didn't know if that's what you were talking about or not. So, okay, that's fine. That was my question.
So you were asking for another waiver to be added to your request sheet.
Yes.
Which one that was. So you'll
the traffic impact study, right?
Yes, that as well.
No, that's on here. That's on the letter.
Yeah, we're going to add to the parking area requirements. So basically, there's another section that requires there to be curb and raised planting beds and landscape plantings. So we were just going to add that to our waiver request since the area right there is, right along a very treed area.
All right. So you gotta update your waiver request letter.
Yep.
Have a meeting with our engineer to see if we can figure out the fee in lieu and widening and or curb and sidewalk situation. So if that's all gets straightened out, we can probably go right to a conditional preliminary final.
Great.
So if you,
This is Alex, and I think I'd agree that the planters and the curbing inside the parking area, I'd be willing to see that money going towards improvements to Forest Road as well.
right. Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. So is this something that, Steve, that you think can get hashed out this month or the next meeting?
Well, we can certainly meet before the next meeting, whether they will revise the plan and come back, or are you willing for them just to come back and verbally say what they want to do or agree to do?
Well, I think I probably want to see it on the plan,
Yeah.
have the official letter.
That
Waiver-
might take an extra meeting to get that resolved.
Well, we can probably resolve that in a meeting and recommend conditional preliminary final.
Yeah, well, let's have the meeting first, and then we can work out their schedule. Come
All right.
back.
Any other comments from planning commission?
I have none.
All right, I see Hal Supervisor Shermer has his hand raised. Go ahead, Hal.
There we go. Good evening again. Just want to double check. Improvements are to the intersection of Old Mill Road and Forest Road, not Forest Road, or is there improvements to Forest?
Not to Forest. We're talking, I think our best case scenario would be widening from the site to Forest.
Okay, somewhere in the discussion before mentioned Forest Road, and I was just wondering, okay, we're talking about the intersection of Forest and Old Mill, or are we talking about Old Mill? I may have misheard, just wanted to ask. Thank you.
No problem. Tony, you got your hand up?
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question. I'm looking at the drawing here, and it shows, it's small, but it shows 36 feet coming in off of Old Mill Road. And I was part of this discussion a year ago with this contractor services. My question is that on a low bed pulling in there, was it intended to back up off of Mill Road in there, or was there a turnaround in there to accommodate the truck movement?
I was not involved in the I guess the earlier planning of the project and truck turnaround. So I don't know what the intended motion of the truck was for this project. I can discuss it with the client and find out more information for you.
Yeah, I think Tony brings up a good point there. Not knowing what type of equipment they have, but I'm assuming they have large equipment that would come in on a low boy. And if they can't swing that around on the property, then they're gonna have to back in off Old Mill, which is, I mean, Old Mill's not a heavy traffic road, but it's still a daunting thing to come around and see a tractor trailer backing into a site. So yeah, if you can find that out, that would be beneficial.
Okay, I made a note of it, and I'll talk to the client and find out for you.
Thank you. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I'd say we'll see you in a month, maybe.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, well, we're gonna move on. Triple Net Investments is next on the agenda. Ed, you're muted.
Now I'm not.
There
Good.
you go.
I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of Triple Net. I have with me various representatives of my client, including our engineers from Dynamic Engineering. Looks like Greg's put the plan up on the screen, and if you'd let me, I'll sort of do an overview and hopefully can short circuit a lot of the comments that I've heard over the last hour or so that would pertain probably to our project as well as the earlier one. The total acreage involved in the application is 95 acres. I'm sure you're well familiar with it. It is zone PI, and it is the home of Draeger Medical, their offices. My client is proposing to subdivide about little over 30 acres from the total of 95 and to build a warehouse on that 30 acres as depicted on the sketch on the screen. At the time that we submitted the application in late March, we had contemplated seeking a zoning variance involving the height of the building, which Steve noted in his April 19th review of that sketch plan that we submitted in late March. We've since determined that we are not going to seek any zoning relief. So the plan that we submit as a land development plan will be, we hope and intend to be zoning variance free. Public water, public sewer is intended to be provided by Telford Borough Authority. And with regard to the review comments in Steve's April 19th review, most of those deal with the typical items that Steve wants us to pay attention to as we prepare and submit the land development plans, and all are well taken, and we certainly will. However, I think the largest issue, as you guys discussed during the Wawa application, is the traffic. And to that end, we're probably a little bit further ahead than Wawa and Matt Hammond on their behalf indicated. We have consulted with Steve and your traffic consultant and understand the scope of the traffic study they are looking for us to undertake and prepare. Dynamic Engineering has done that, and we are poised and ready to submit the traffic study to the township. It's nearing completion. So Greg Lippincott has made us aware, understandably, that the township needs us to look at this traffic on a broader, more holistic basis, if you will, because we recognize there are other pending projects in the immediate area to our site, and we are certainly going to do that. As you heard Matt say, we've already had some conversations directly with the Wawa folks, and we'll continue to coordinate what we're doing with them and with Steve and with McMahon, who we've also talked to. So happy to go through all the other review comments, but they're all pretty much self-explanatory. The important takeaways are we're not going to seek any variances, and the traffic study is underway. We're going to evaluate the other pending projects of which we're aware, and then everybody will have an opportunity to comment further upon it as we get ready to submit the formal land development plans going forward. So I think that's where we are. And Steve, I don't know if there's anything else that you think is pressing that we should probably talk about, but that's where we are at the moment.
Well, just in relation to use, I know we had a lot of discussion with Varus when that first came in about, is the building intended as a single user? Is it a spec building that might have multiple users? Is there a chance that some user other than warehouse would seek to rent space in this building? Or is there any clarification on, that front for the end user of the building?
I don't think tonight, Steve, there is. I know I talked briefly to Greg about that as well. And obviously, all of our preference would be, if the market would allow, to have a single user for the whole building. I just don't know that anybody can commit to that this evening, because until we know that we have a project, it's probably premature to go out and really market it much. But yes, our preference would be for a single user, but we're not yet sure.
But, and as we ultimately concluded with the Veris project, even if there's multiple users, if they're all under the warehouse use, that doesn't pose any zoning complications.
Yes, and I do believe that it's intended to be all warehouse use, Steve, right?
Thank you.
Okay. How about, let's just run down the review letter. I'm looking at the first item. You don't know who your user is going to be, so you don't know what your outside storage
Right.
use is going to be.
Right.
Okay.
And we understand, and I'll zip through them if you like.
Yeah,
Steve,
go ahead.
Steve's right. The impervious surface limit is 60. We're at 56 and change. And yep, we know we got to be mindful of that as we do any other revisions to the plan. We show all the spaces and all of that. We probably think there's way too many, but that's what your ordinance requires. So our intention is to comply and do that. 5 would be removed, since our intention is not to seek any height variance. 6 is a note on the plan, which we understand would have to be identified. 7, yes, Steve's right. The buffers will be provided on the detailed engineering land development plans. And to the extent we should have available dirt, Steve, and we can do berms, hopefully. Site capacity calcs, agreed, have to be revised as we get further deeper into the engineering. Same thing with the landscape plans, which will be included with our land development plans. The traffic study I've already commented upon. It's the draft is complete and ready for submission. And we did consult in advance with Steve and McMahon about the scope of the study. So hopefully at least the scope part everybody will understand and appreciate. And we'll obviously be mindful of any comments we get back as we go along. We understand about 11 and frontage improvements on Quarry. Steve, I'll defer to our engineers and you about the extent of site grading. At this point, I think your sense of it is right, that there may be a fair amount of grading, and we understood in advance that you can't export topsoil off-site without the prior approval of you and the township. We fully intend to comply with the stormwater requirements. We all understand what they are, both yours and DEP's. Same thing with site lighting for number 14. 15, we understand the fees in lieu. And the others dealing with the Telford Borough Authority and getting will serve letters and planning module approval, et cetera, are all understood, as well as Conservation District and DEP approval for site disturbance and stormwater. So I think that's it.
Just to touch on one or two of those, the buffering, unlike some of the other projects we've talked about, the only, I would say the largest concern is the Lutheran community. That's the,
yep,
the residential, if, per se.
Okay.
That's adjoining this. So that, I think that would be a point of concern. And I know you don't show anything there, but I guess I just want to hear you say it. There is this little portion of property that goes out to State Road in between the Lutheran community and and the PPL facility, which I think might have been a house down there at one time that North American Dregger bought.
That's down at the bottom of the screen there, right?
Right. You have no intentions for
We do not.
any access or anything directly to State Road. I assume maybe utilities might come in there if they needed to, but that might be it.
Right. As the plan shows, we show 2 access points on Quarry, but nothing through that little oddly configured piece at the bottom going out the state. Right. Yep.
Okay. So no waiver requests.
There will be. I don't know to what extent they are. As the plan gets engineered by Dynamic, there may be some. There are some obvious ones that we've highlighted. They're more technical. I don't know that there are any substantive ones. I use that term loosely, but yes, I'm sure there will be some, but we're sensitive to the fact that we want to keep them to be more technical and minimize any substantive ones or eliminate them. Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
All right.
Ed, this is Alex Ulmer. Do you have any idea of hours of operation?
I don't, Mr. Ulmer, tonight, but I'm sure, when we come back, we'll be able to address that. Hopefully, a lot of it will be tenant driven, but we'll come back and address that.
Any other discussion? Planning Commission members? All right, Tony, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Ed, was Telford Lutheran notified on the plans? I'm just curious.
I'm going to defer to the Dynamic engineer guys. I don't know if your ordinances require notice at the sketch plan stage. If they did, then we did it. But Justin, are you on that you can answer that question?
I am on. I don't know if there was notification required for the sketch plan, but obviously moving forward, we would we would notify them, and if it's not required, we would do so anyway, just so they're aware of the application.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. We do not have a notification requirement for sketch plan, but we do for preliminary plan, and generally that has to be submitted with the preliminary plan, and we won't schedule a planning commission meeting unless we know that the neighbors have been notified.
Understood. Okay.
My only concern is that some of those people are not, I want to say Zoom savvy or internet savvy. And, I don't want to see them left out. That's all.
Okay. No problem.
Anyone else? All right, so we're going to wait to see your official traffic report.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you expect to submit that before you submit your preliminary plan, or you're ready to do both?
We'll be submitting traffic report probably next week. The land development plans would be in early September, is what we're aiming for.
Okay. I only asked that to some degree, we need to see the land development plan to.
If you want us to wait, Steve, until we have everything together at once, we'll do it. It's up to you.
I'd prefer to get it all at once.
Okay.
Sure.
Then we'll
Just so
plan to
there's-
submit everything after Labor Day if that's that's what Justin's schedule is. That's what we'll do.
Just so we're not duplicating that, we're not going back over our comments after the plan has been received because something pops up.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, I'd say thanks for coming out tonight.
Good. Thanks for listening.
See you when you come back.
See you soon. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
All right. Next on the agenda will be old business. We still have the comp plan discussion going.
Could I jump in on old business and get something out of the way?
Sure.
Before we get into comp plan. If you remember the, what do we call it? The Oakwood Terrace THP project there on
Lawn Avenue,
Lawn Avenue and the
next to the hospital.
other road is
Hidden Meadows.
keeping me. Yeah, but what's the name of the road there?
Lawn and
Farmers.
Farmers.
Farmers Lane. Yeah, you guys can't remember either. We've approved the plan. They have a conditional plan approval. They're working through their conditions. One of the conditions was the sewage facilities planning module. Again, remember, it's public sewer connected to the Sellersville Borough sewer system. Well, we finally got the paperwork in, and they require the planning commission to sign off on that component 4A, which says that the plan is consistent with township ordinances. The mere fact that we've already approved the plan, and I think essentially says that it's met all of our requirements. So I'd just be asking at the planning commission, make a motion to authorize the chairman to sign the component 4A.
So you're
This is-
looking for a motion?
This is Alex. I'll make a motion. We sign. The chairman authorize signature of the planning module for said subdivision or development.
Andy, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. So I have to come in and sign a plan?
Or I'll send it to you. It's just a sheet of paper.
Gotcha.
I'll email you about it.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
No, that's fine. All right, so do we want to have discussion on the comp plan initiatives? John, do you want to have discussion?
I don't have much plan. I looked at the agenda and I thought we would be here till midnight, so I didn't prepare a whole lot. What I had been working on was a follow-up to the discussion we had with Mary Eberly about looking again at the lot sizes and what we could do in lieu of raising minimum lot sizes to try to put more parameters around development in conservation areas. We had talked about the Tinicum Township ordinance as something to consider. That's a 61 megabyte file, so it's too big to email. So what I started to try to do was to go through and to pull out the relevant sections to our discussion to get a smaller file that I could send out to everybody, as well as going back over some of the other neighboring townships to see if they have any similar wording. So that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. I'll try to get something out before our next meeting and give people an opportunity to review it.
Out of curiosity, John, what part of the Tinicum ordinance specifically were you're looking at?
We're looking at things like when you calculate buildable area, you exclude wetlands, you exclude water, you
Steep
put
slopes.
steep slopes, you put a percentage on slopes, you put a percentage on wooded areas.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you're just talking lot areas or their overlay zones or the site calc. So thank you.
Yeah, it was the site calc specifically that we had talked to Mary about as a possible avenue to pursue going forward. And I think we had talked about that possibility here as well.
Right. Pal, you got your hand up?
Yes. One of the easier ways is just, you can probably just email the link to the Tinicum zoning ordinance, or there's actually pdfshrink.com, which does a pretty good job of getting the PDF files down. So sometimes just getting the link and copying it and sending it is easier than trying to send. The darn engineer has scanned everything at 4,000 DPI and you've got a 400 meg file. So that might be an easier way of getting the information out, is just sending the link and everybody just click on it and read it. I know that many of the southeastern Pennsylvania zoning ordinances are available online and they're text searchable, so it makes it pretty easy to find stuff.
Yeah, I had considered sending out the link. The Tinicum ordinance is 671 pages. So rather than putting everyone through the exercise of trying to find a couple of specific paragraphs, I was going to try to do that legwork ahead of that. If people want the whole file, I'll certainly send out the link, because I said I consider that as a possibility, but I was trying to save everybody else some time.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that, John. Their ordinance is full of amendments. It's not codified, and it's, even for me, I haven't figured it out yet in the 6 or 8 months that we've been working there. So it is not an easy document to work with.
Thanks, John. We appreciate your
However,
efforts.
Print to PDF is a nice little feature because you find the pages that you want, the first title page. So it's print to PDF 1, 2, 10 through 30, 45 through 35, 45 through 55, and you can shrink down and just narrow it down to the pages that you're actually interested in. Print that to a PDF and then run it through the PDF shrinker, and you get a pretty good cheat sheet of the most important pieces of the ordinance. So, but it does take a little while to get used to going through and winnowing out all the stuff that you're not interested in.
Yeah, I'm familiar with print to PDF, and that's what I would use. The other quirk with that is that the page numbers don't necessarily line up with the page numbers in the file, so you have to be careful of what you see might not be what you get. But I'll go through that and send out the condensed version to everybody, as well as going back through some of the other townships that had similar wording in order to try to provide a little bit more information for everyone for their consideration.
Well, props for you doing all that work. Thank you.
The perils of being a retiree.
Are you retired now, John?
Yeah, I left the workforce last June.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Wow. Well, yeah, we're going to lay more work on it. I didn't know
I was gonna
that.
say, I don't feel so bad now.
Anyway, we all
crowd.
appreciate your efforts, John, for certain. You really, really come up with a lot of information for us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there any other discussion on this that we want to have this evening, or want to move forward?
I guess the next one I wanted to tackle after we get through this is one of the items that we have is related to the in-law suites, in the bed and breakfasts, temporary residence within an existing residence. And again, I was going to kind of go through the same process and pull out information from other townships, but I guess if folks can start thinking about what their feelings are with regard to having single family residents housing more than a single family.
Right. Okay.
There was some talk about some court cases I thought that were coming up regarding Airbnb and Verbo type uses that I thought Mary at one point said we should wait to see what comes of them before we think about changing anything in our ordinances. Do you remember any of that, Chris?
I don't remember that. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean she didn't say it.
No.
Well, one way of addressing it, I had a case, one of the first cases dealing with an Airbnb, which dealt with Philadelphia, which says, we have Airbnb to be filled in later. And then they just kind of left it there like, we have to go through the courts to get that filled in. In most cases, I think there may be a couple of Airbnbs which are supporting the Washington House because of the theater. You may have a couple of Airbnbs which are kind of sort of almost like a Ronald McDonald House because if somebody's staying at Grandview Hospital. But aside from that, I don't think that there's a big draw for Airbnbs in the area. There, just go on Airbnb and check to see who's.
The one I'm thinking of was down on Tower Road, I think.
Yeah.
And it was being rented out as a party house.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they're different. Well, that's its own problem.
And that's the problem I was referring to.
Right. And a
Gotcha.
year or two ago, it might even be 2 years ago now, I forget, with COVID, Mary had prepared an amendment for Airbnb, which ended up stagnating with the board for various reasons. And so there is a draft ordinance out there, at least for Airbnb, although the way I think John was discussing was maybe more with in-law apartments and that, which is a little bit different than an Airbnb issue.
Right.
And the complaints on Tower Road have ceased.
Okay. And Greg, I think with regard to the in-law stuff, you said there was something, if there was some specific language in it that you could enforce, that's what you were looking for on the, because it got down to how do you define a family, I think, at one point in those discussions.
For the in-law suite?
Yeah.
It's restricted. Mary writes it in and it's deed restricted.
Okay.
Yeah, usually the problem isn't the Airbnb. The problem that you're seeing in Lower Bucks is the rehabilitation houses, which are kind of sort of outside of zoning law. So you got a bunch of guys who are in the rehab house and they're considered a family because they're all under care, and that causes a bunch of problems. We don't have any, I don't think I know of any concerns north of 202, but I know that there are a lot of people who are north of 260 or below 263 and Doylestown, which are having aggravation because of that, where it's like, hey, well, we're all a family because we're all trying to recover, and instead they're just causing a bunch of problems. So at the same time, you're trying to look at that idea of how do you define a family, how do you define temporary, day by day residents, and then occasionally you run into the guys who are the I don't think we have too much of a problem up here, but I know in Lower Bucks and I think it was Berks, they had some problems with the old LCB tavern licenses where the LCB requires that a tavern have overnight accommodations. And that LCB regulation cuts right through the local zoning. So your local tavern or inn that's been there for 200 years can rent rooms by the night because they're supposed to, because the LCB says that's part of their requirement is to rent rooms by the night for travelers. But that's more overthinking than we need to do at 9-ish.
Yeah. So that's your next target, John.
That was the one I was looking at next, since that had been something that had come up. As Steve said, it's probably been a while now, but it was something that has come up more recently than I think anything else that was on the list for us to take a look at.
Okay.
There was one other thing I was thinking about, and it kind of follows on the email I sent to Greg earlier this evening about the Trail Summit. I think one of the things in there was to form a committee on trails.
That was one that I had put on the list to ask the Park and Rec group to take the lead on.
Okay.
I never heard anything back from them on it. I was going to give them a little bit of time to consider it and then poke them to see whether they were interested in taking that one on or not.
Gotcha. So you're thinking that would be like a subcommittee of Park and Rec?
Or at least for since they are, recreation is built into their name and hiking is a recreation thing, at least I would think they would have more insight into what they would be looking for in terms of putting together a committee, whether that is a subcommittee to Park and Rec or a standalone committee. I don't know, but I think rather than us trying to tackle that one, I thought they would be better positioned to do that.
Gotcha. My only other suggestion was that we, petition the planning or petition the supervisors to start such a committee.
Well, actually, I think we already have a Trails Committee. We just have 0 members, and it's been sitting there for like 20 years with nobody on it.
Well, it used to be Judy Decker. She was the subcommittee for trails in the township.
Yes.
Yep.
When she retired, that sort of.
Yes,
And then the
Judy.
trails went down.
Judy was a trail advocate.
Hey.
I should have thought of that, but for I guess it's triple net for the proposal for there was a long-term proposal to have a bike trail to connect Telford Library and the ball fields over by Landis's Market through and over to Quarry Road, which would be something that you might want to eventually ask the guys putting the warehouse in, like, hey, could you set aside some setback for a trail, since we've had it on the plan, I think, for like 10, 15, 20 years.
That was actually in the Bucks County Review letter.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
I read it.
I was going to bring that up and I forgot.
Oh,
Anyway.
I did.
I made note of it on my letter, so
Oh, you did?
I'll pick it up in the preliminary plan.
Now, in the same way, there's also, I think, a suggestion that there should be a trail crossing if there is ever a stoplight at Meeting House and State Road, so that you can then connect down Meeting House to the other side. And there's still a proposal to somehow route the trail either up and over a Meeting House and then go under the 309 bridge at the creek, or try to, basically it's going to be grab the kids and run like hell to try to get across the outlet, the southbound exit ramp and the northbound entrance ramp. So more likely it would be something that would be go up Meeting House, then go down the hill, go under the bridge, and then you would connect to the south side trail that's been proposed for a while to connect over to Sellersville's trail system. And they were talking, for 20 years, 10 years, there's been a proposal for a trail to go from the end of Druckenmiller Park, have a bridge going across, see if you can find some way to get Rotundo just drop a bunch of pieces of old bridge material that they don't have, that they don't want to use, and then connect into the trails in the back of the newer developments there, and then try to link everything up. So there we have 2 projects which currently are connected in with the trail systems or are located on locations where there are proposals for trails or close to.
Okay. All right. Well, John, do you have anything else?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Why don't we move forward? Is there any other old business? Greg, do you have anything? I don't have anything. How about new business? I don't have any new business either. Is there anything we need to discuss? Anything under your, Steve, your pending projects sheet?
I don't think so. I'll take a quick scan, but
I didn't see any asterisks anywhere. Asterisks.
Yeah, we have a whole lot of old sketch plans and people that gave us indefinite extensions. The only one that really has an active date, I think, is still Butter Creek, but who knows what he's going to do. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we move on to public comment? Greg, any emails?
John Romeo, I don't know if he wants to say it or he wants me to read it.
John, if you're on and you want to talk, go right ahead. If not, Greg will read your email. All right, Greg, why don't you read it?
Okay, let's see. John Romeo, you stated trash cans are in the back. What about the neighbors? I see houses. They have to give up a peaceful life for a dumpster slamming cars and crime 24/7. Put this out on Bethlehem Pike or another area active 24/7. Ask anyone in law enforcement, and they in the 309 area is a direct route to Philadelphia. to Allentown, and this will invite the criminal element and otherwise quiet area of locals. He also writes, I gotta find it. Where's his second email? I'll come back when I find his second email. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Is that the only one?
That's the only one I see.
Okay. Well, nobody has their hand up, so I would say it's time for a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait a minute. We got a hand. Jackie Willard. Go ahead, Jackie.
It's Jack Willard. But I'm sorry, we have to turn the other speakers off.
Yeah, a little feedback.
Thank you for your patience with me. I appreciate that.
No worries.
Yeah, I've been attending these meetings since is it Veris, the warehouse at Meeting House Road came to my attention, and I'm looking at triple net, and I'm going to reiterate what I said in the last few meetings, and that is that we're turning a area that has businesses in it, has residents in it, and we've all gotten along. It's because the time frame that these businesses operate are from, say, 7 in the morning till 6 at night. The streets roll up, and it's a peaceful area. And it was brought to my attention, I believe it was the last meeting I was at, that there's nothing we can do about that. Progress goes on. What can be done in the township about having a ordinance that precludes a 24/7 business? I have little objections to any of our neighbors because they operate respectfully within our neighborhood. The neighborhood across the valley from us on Cat Hill. Is there a short answer to it, or is this something that has to be looked into? Thank you for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Anything else come in, Greg?
No, that is it.
All right. Now I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
This is Andy. I'll make a motion.
John, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, folks.
You do the same.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. We'll see you.